MFs, welcome to another episode of Hustle Like You Broke, where we remind you it might be Groundhog Day outside, but in here, we bring you a fresh new perspective every Tuesday and Thursday. This week is no different. We have the privilege of one of the great musical directors in this world coming to us today, Mr. Adam Blackstone. But before we get to him, just want to remind you, coming to you from Boston, Massachusetts, I am Matthew Walt. From Miami, Florida, we have the amazing Christine Dallas.
Hello, hello.
From Los Angeles, California, audio extraordinaire, Mr. Kyle Hamilton.
Top of the evening, how are you?
And from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, none other than my good brother Banks.
What's going on? What's going on?
Always a pleasure, Banks. It sounds
my
like
beverage.
Yeah, you working on the morning shots there?
It's my beverage, my breakfast cocktail here.
Getting an early start on the day. That is
Teacher
what we
special.
like to see.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just want to start today by acknowledging we learned earlier, pre-taping, that we've been perpetrating a bit of a fraud. All this time, I thought Kyle Hamilton was eating his crunch berries every day, and it turns out that this motherfucker has been on a diet.
You got to move in silence.
Lost 20 pounds already. We are very proud. Very proud.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Well, you know,
There
when
it
you're,
is.
when you're on the coronation, you can get fat and fluffy or thin and sexy. So when we come out of it, we're going to be in the heart of the summer. I'm going to be thin and sexy.
I mean, what else do we got to do but get in shape, take care of ourselves, take care of our mind, take care of our body. We talked about mental health issues on this program. We've talked about just ways of living better, coming out of this thing stronger. Kudos to you.
There it is.
So without further ado, let's bring out Mr. Adam Blackstone, one of the great musical directors of this world. Here he is, coming to us from, where is it now? Are you in the Philly area, Adam?
Yeah, I'm right outside of Philly. I actually live in Delaware. My wife is from Baltimore, and I'm from South Jersey, Philadelphia area. So Delaware was the middle point for us, especially when we had our son. So I'm out in Delaware, man, and it's no better place to be, especially right now. I got a little bit of space and a little bit of land during this pandemic, so it's been cool.
I'm definitely feeling for people that don't have space, whether they live in New York, wherever they live. If they live in an urban area and they are in an apartment somewhere,
Yeah,
man, I mean, to be holed up inside a small apartment, be rough.
praying for everybody out there for sure.
So, Adam, let's take it back to when you were a kid. We understand that you were born Trenton, New Jersey. You came up. Your father was a jazz musician.
Yeah, my dad. I wouldn't even put a genre on it. He was, as we call now in 2020, I would say he was just a workhorse, like wedding band guy. You know what I'm saying? But he was a one-man band, and as I look back, he was my very first inspiration as a musical director, because he did all his own arrangements because it was just him. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, man, he from everything from church to bar mitzvahs to birthday parties to big time concerts to balls, the mayor's ball, governor's ball, stuff like that. So he was killing it.
Now, Brother Banks can definitely speak to his experience in houses of worship. Sounds like there's a commonality there. Banks.
Oh, yeah. Church boy.
Well, we like to chime in about that every once in a while. Sorry, Adam. But it sounds like you got a little rounded experience, and we love to hear about that. And it sounds like he was a little bit of a hustler, which is clearly rubbed off on you. That is obviously what we are all about here. And I do want to say, before we get too far into this, because, I really want to hear all about your experience, but we talk about the working class heroes here. And usually we're talking about the crew guys. And I've been having this kind of philosophical conversation in my head about this for the last couple of days about what does that mean, the working class of the concert industry? And it got me thinking in two different ways. First of all, when we think of working class, we think of, in society, we think of working class people, but we don't necessarily think about those working class people who hustle to the point that they thrive and they really are upper class people, middle class people. I'm just thinking in terms of class consciousness, and I don't really mean to go too far down this rabbit hole. But my point is, I started thinking, where do musicians fit into this too? And somehow I feel like the musicians must fall into that middle class. Am I right? Is the crew the working class? Is the musician and the band, is the B party kind of the middle class? And then the artist is, how do we define that? Anybody want to chime in and shut me up and tell me what they think about all that?
I mean, when you say class, are we talking about out on the road, the class, like A party, B party, C party, or are we talking in economic times of our world?
Well, that's kind of the overlap that I'm getting at here. And again, taking a little latitude and kind of thinking this through and putting it out there. But we refer to our podcast as celebrating the working class heroes in the concert industry. So we are primarily focused on the concert industry itself. But when we talk about those working class heroes, we get guys like Joey Gallagher, Mickey Kirbishley, guys who have started as staging guys and as lighting guys that have worked their way up and busted their ass to do great things that shape the industry. You are obviously a hustler, but you have come up as a musician. And as our first musician, I kind of want to see, like, where does the musician fit into this kind of quote unquote class structure that we are loosely defining? And what does that mean in terms of the way you are perceived in this business and the way you approach what you do?
Oh man, I think that's a very tricky question, Matt, because depending on the camp, it could vary. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to call out too many names, but like, I think that for a majority of the hustle, you are looked at as lower class. You know what I'm saying? You're looked at as expendable until you find your niche. And I've been able to find my niche a lot of times as to where the artist or the management or the label feels like they need you. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't always happen like that. And until that happens, I think that everybody is expendable, you know what I mean? And looked at as replaceable and looked at as, lower working class, just to be honest with you. That's why I wanted to define exactly in the world, what in the world of what we're talking about, what you were talking about. And then you have artists like, like a Dave Matthews or, I've been blessed to work with Maroon 5 and, they those guys, they treat it like a band, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, you got your own bus, you're on the private plane, stuff like that. But a lot of artists who we all work for, just to be honest with you, we are working for them. And I'm not saying we're low class mentally or in our mind, but I'm saying like at any time, we hustle because we could be let go, or that artist could get pregnant, or that artist could want to go in another direction and not have a band and use a DJ, or that artist could say switch management and so the management brings in a whole new crew or production manager, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I mean by that. I don't mean to demean us in any way and say we're lower class, but I do mean that each job, each gig is just not secure. And I feel like all of us on here can attest to that.
And that is exactly what I would wish you would say if I had thought about the answer in my own head, because we represent those that, generally speaking, in this industry do not have a voice. And that is or don't have much opportunity to use our voice. And that is why we are here and have created this platform and are trying to bring on the types of people who can really illustrate that and accentuate that and help us overcome that and get to that next level, be it hustling, be it developing new industry standards as we come out of this global pandemic in order to further the cause of the working class people, those people that don't have a voice, those people who may have formerly been looked at as lower class. But we all know from our
I even think coming out of this, developing a new standard, is going to hurt some of us. Like what I'm going to have to choose to do as an MD is not going to be good for people for like Kyle Hamilton, who I think is, one of the best in the world, but it's not going to be that many live band shows anymore. You know what I'm saying? Right away. So it's like, what do I hire him to go mix? You know what I'm saying? And
You can
so
hire me to go into the studio and do your live streams.
See, that all depends too, because if my budget is 2,500 or for all in, and I'm exaggerating, but it's like, based off of us not having work for a little while, and when I say not having work, I mean in the style of what we are known to do right now. I'm thankful that we all are working in some form or another, but it depends. Everybody's going to be changing their garb. It's going to be a changing of the garb, and that means economically, that means travel wise and everything. So, I like I said, I'm exaggerating, but like it's not going to be tour season as we know it for a long time.
Well, I can only hope that's not true, but I unfortunately think that you're right and very much on point in what you're saying. So before we get too far down that line of discourse, why don't we back it up? Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your come up, about how you do, what it is that you do. I'll prop you up so you don't have to. You done Grammys, you done Super Bowls, you done Kennedy Center honors. I mean, you are the man in this space, and we appreciate having you here. But tell us a little more about you, and then Mr. Motherfucker Kyle Hamilton, why don't you take it from there? Thank you, gentlemen.
So, Mr. Adam Blackstone, Mr. BBE himself. Woo! I've also had the pleasure of working with you on many different clients and running around the world with you. So, what have you brought to the industry that sets you apart from MDs prior to you? And why do you seem to own the industry right now?
Well, thank you. Number one, I definitely don't see it as own the industry, but I would say that I'm blessed to have made my mark with my sound.
Mm-hmm.
A big part of that, man, is the team. Like, period. Like, that just kind of is what it is. One of my gifts, bigger than music, is putting the team together. You know what I'm saying? Like, as an MD, I'm really only as good as my squad. Every idea that I come up with is not always the best. Every suggestion that I have is not always the best. And it's about me trusting the people around me who know we all have the same common goal, is to make this artist that we're working for, is to make this music that we're producing sound great and be great and impact the world. So, I've been blessed in the last, I'm going to say 15 years to just continue to build a strong team. So I would that would be my biggest, testament to me, quote unquote, working a lot or having a lot of gigs or whatever, because at a point around 2009, 2010, 2011, I couldn't be everywhere where I was requested. So I had to start trusting people. You know what I mean?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And earlier it didn't always work out for me, because sometimes I was going with friends that I knew were talented, but may not have had the people skills that I have. And sometimes I was going with friends that, may not could make the best business decisions right in the moment. And that's another thing that separates me from a lot of other MDs, is that, the artist trusts me because I make a split second decision that's best for everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, those audibles are important. I've been with you when you had to make audibles in the
Yeah.
trenches, and it's been magical. I remember one specifically with our illustrious Pro Tools guy, Demi Dunn son,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and he made magic when we all held our breath, and it happened. And I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
and that's what I mean about trusting the team, because here's the other thing about trusting the team. Number one, I'm gonna give that's Demetrius Henry, Pro Tools extraordinaire. I give him all the props. Are you talking about Bad Boy Tour or something else?
Bad Boy Tour. I just didn't want to drop it unless you did it.
Okay, yeah, no, it's all good. So yeah, we had a situation where we couldn't find the artist that was coming out next, and how I program these songs, they run in medley form, so it's not like we could stop down. So Demi was able to make an edit on the fly and take the artist verse out, and we were still able to continue going. Now, here's the thing with that. Did I touch Pro Tools and do that on the fly? No, I didn't. I was able to find who I feel is one of the best programmers in the world, and he did it. However, this
You
is
got all
what
the praise.
this is well, not just the praise, but here's what I'm saying. I do get the praise, and I have been one of the musicians and guys to really, really give my team props and post about my team. And if somebody does an arrangement for me, I make sure the world knows. It's not, I don't care about that. But with every good idea, I get the fault when it's done wrong as well. And that's what I feel like people really don't really get, because even through this social media age, which I'm not the best at, but it's a false reality. We are, of course, posting great things. We don't always post we're not posting negative things. So I've had some decision making or some things where I've trusted my programmer or trusted my guitar player or trusted my monitor engineer or whatever, and they did not go well, and I get the blame for that. And as a good MD, as a good leader, I'm never going to deflect that. That was my decision. I told them to do it, and that's my fault when it goes right or when it goes wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think a lot of artists and crew members and people trust me, because I'm gonna always have our back. I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, especially when I tell them to do something. You know what I mean? Me and Kyle have worked in a situation where sometimes there's been a pre-recorded vocal and then it bounces back to live for television or whatever. And I've had to make a decision on the fly. Yo, don't do this like this. And even though Kyle may disagree or he may want to do it his way, I know I'm doing it best for the artist. Now, if the artist doesn't like it, I can't, or if goes against what Kyle was saying or goes against what I was saying, I still have to take the entire, quote unquote blame for that. But having a good team in place makes those decisions easy for me because we trust each other. You know what I'm saying?
Totally understood. So, like our boy Jordan would say, there's no iron team, but there's an iron win.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with
I was
everyone
about to
running.
say, but Kraus would have to, I got to be honest and ride with Jerry Krause on this and say it's the organization, man. It's not just
You're
the team.
100% right. Yes, you're 100% right. Whew, that's real, because a lot of times there are MDs that I've worked with that have made executive decisions and it could crash and burn, and they'll blame everyone else as opposed to raising their hand and saying, "Yo, know what? Hey, stop, stop, stop! I told him to do X, Y, Z." And that speaks volumes, because then you're looking at the guy like, "Yo, you told me to do this, I do that," and we all get cussed out, and you say it's our fault. So accountability is speaks volumes over. I work with somebody who pays me 100%. I mean, not 100%, but pays me less than someone else if I know that their accountability and their work ethic and their word will have your back all the time. Because a lot
For
of times,
sure.
this industry is, everybody's looking out for themselves. And unfortunately, that self mentality leads to people getting fired, unfortunately. And that's a cold pill to swallow.
And that's another thing that I never want, because a lot of the times, I'm gonna say 90% of the times, I'm bringing those guys in with me. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So it's not a good look if somebody's being let go under my watch anyway. You know what I'm saying? So that's another reason I'm gonna protect us always, whether that be a tech, a crew member, a guitar player, or an engineer, is because I am telling the artist, I am telling management before we start, this is the best person for the job. So if they make a mistake, which always sometimes it ain't my fault, the mistakes that are made, but I'ma still ride out, because you know what I'm saying? Like I need the upper management to know that this is a one time occurrence and it won't happen again.
Yeah, that's again, that takes, I tip my hat to you for being the one to absorb all of that energy, good or bad, because someone has to do it. And if it's not you are the captain of the ship or captain of the production per se from a musical standpoint. So that speaks volumes. So in in creating your picture for whoever artist wants you to put this show together, how would you rate or compare the process of vetting the new musicians versus how the old musicians would come up here and do and rock out with you? For instance, a drummer coming and there's chops all over the place versus a drummer who will come in and give you that solid groove. How would you compare yesterday's musician to today's and the vetting process?
That's an interesting question. I just want to clean it up just a little bit, because the process, the terminology even of yesterday is a little weird to me, because I consider myself, unfortunately, a OG in the game right now. I'm 38 years old.
Yeah, but you've
And
also reinvented yourself, so it is a
no,
process.
no, for sure. But my favorite drummers are older than me. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So I don't look at Brian Fraser Moore, or I don't look at Chris Johnson as yesterday to me, because I think they can go with any of the quote unquote new cats. And one reason for that is that when artists call me, they're calling me for my sound. They're
Mhm.
calling me for my tightness. They're calling me for my sonic accountability. And and the biggest thing that I would say is the difference with some of the newer guys that I hear now is the sonics of everything. You know what I'm saying? I see Brian and Chris, those two specifically, and I'm only pointing them two out because I work with them a lot, pretty often. But I see them show up to the gig 2-3 hours in advance just to tune up their drums. You know what I'm saying? Or I see them invest in themselves and know which tech they want to use to get the proper sound for whatever that gig is. So, sometimes even over the chops, to me, it's about sounding like the gig. You know what I mean? Um, and so I would say that that is probably the biggest difference between, hiring somebody that I'm used to working with, or hiring a new cat that for sure can play. There's a lot of dudes that can play, but how in tune with the sonic palette of the songs or the artist are you? If I call you to do Tim McGraw on Faith Hill or Rascal Flatts, I can't have it sounding like Justin Timberlake, or I can't have it sounding like Madonna. You know what I mean? Or if with Chris, we do Camila Cabello, that doesn't sound like Lady Gaga. You know what I
Right,
mean? It's a different thing. So, I think that, the quote unquote yesterday cats have paid a little more attention to the sonic palette of musicianship, and that goes with bass, that goes with guitar, that goes with keyboard as well. It's like you know each song has a different piano. Lady Gaga's piano patch is not what I use for, if we doing Tony Braxton. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a different thing. That Dark Child, sound, piano sound is different than Lady Gaga sitting at a 10-foot grand. You know what I
Right.
mean? So when
Right.
we're programming that, or if I'm programming, Camila Cabello, and she has a song with an orchestra, that string patch is different than a J-Lo up-tempo song, you know what I mean, that I might do for Super Bowl. So, all of those things really, really matter. And I tend to have seen, our cats, the older cats kind of hone in specifically on like sound design a little bit more. That's all I would say. It's less about the playing, because them young cats are playing. I'm gonna speak for myself. They playing super circles around me. You know what I mean? So, but I do know what I bring as a bassist is tone and energy and pocket, as to where the song is what needs to be displayed on, especially pop tunes. You know what I'm saying? It's not a lot of room for the chops and stuff like
So,
that. So
so do you think it's for the younger generation or the newer guys that being able to read music is important, or just playing by sight? I mean, playing by ear and chopping it up to death.
got you. So I mean, it depends on where you're trying to go. I've always been the guy. When I started, I wanted to do everything. You know what I'm saying? I moved to Philadelphia in 2000, really thinking I was going to play jazz all my life. Whether that was going to be on tour with, Maynard Ferguson Big Band, or rocking out at the Cotton Club a couple times a week, or, so then that made me get my reading chops up, because I was playing a lot of upright bass and sitting in at quote unquote jazz gigs, which they were plopping charts in front of us. And then I turned into a theater guy, which I still love theater like heavy. And I was paying my bills for a long time while I was in school. I was in pit bands for many, many off-Broadway type shows. So I had to know how to read well for that, because there was no no rehearsals, or that the director or would call out bar numbers, or we would change keys and we would need to know what bar and change meter and stuff like that. So, for me, reading music was a big part of my overall musicianship, because I wanted to be able to do everything.
Gotcha.
Fast forward to my MDing my first like award show. I brought that reading mentality into my first award show, because it was so much music. We were doing 29, 30 bumpers, which are 90 seconds each. So for me, instead of trying to memorize all of that, I was like, hey, I'm going to write it down. I'm going to chart it. I'm going to score it out. So we're all on the same page at all times. And I continue to do that for my award shows still. I have a copyist that writes my charts, and I'll do the arrangements, send it to them, and that lets me be able to internalize what's on the paper, what's on the ink, as we say.
Hey, Adam, I had a question, man. With all that you do and all the artists that you work with and people coming to you specifically for your sound, how do you go about keeping it fresh? How do you go about, basically creating new ideas without recycling old ideas? What's your process?
My process for that is a couple different things. One of the processes is that let the music tell you what it needs. Just don't do something, a line or a lick or a swell or a chop, or a special, as we call it. Just don't do it just because. Some songs don't call for a lot. You know what I mean? And so as far as the recycling is concerned, I never really ran into that problem, because to me each song speaks a different language. You know what I'm saying?
I got
So
you.
I'm not regurgitating old stuff, because this song, the lyric is saying something different, the tone is saying something different, the instrumentation in the song is saying something different than maybe what I have done a week ago. You know what I mean? On another song.
Mhm.
So
I
that's
got
the
you.
main thing for me, man, is really let the lyric, really let the music speak to you as far as what it deserves and what it needs. The other thing is, like I said, building a team. Some people, to me, specialize in different things. So if I'm doing a hip hop tune, that might be different than who I asked to score strings on my country tune. You know what I mean? So it's also knowing your personnel and knowing your team and who has the strengths and weaknesses of certain genres of music. So that to me always keeps it fresh as well.
I like that. It's all
With
about the
so,
team.
with so many different genres of music that you work with, how do you sleep? Because I know your mind is about to burst with information on a regular. So, how do you just decompress that all so that when you walk into any specific gig, you can approach
Yeah.
it from a new perspective?
I must be honest and say, I didn't sleep a lot in my 20s. I didn't sleep well, I should say. And it wasn't until my wife and I were ready to settle down and have a child that I realized how much sleep was important. Um, we were married for a long while in the standards of marriage before we were able to have a baby. And I realized that, you know, doing my own research and going to some doctors for myself, the sun and the moon tell your body when to shut down and basically rejuvenate itself. So if I'm locked in the studio all night, Kyle, as you know, we might be in rehearsal till 3, 4 in the morning. Like I was doing that for a span, just to be honest with you, from like '05 to 2015.
Mhm.
Um, and just really going, eating terribly. I had got up to a very, very, big weight. I was like 356 pounds, and I was just going because I was eating dinner at 1 a.m. You know what I mean? It was just a completely bad lifestyle, health wise for me, and sleep or lack thereof played an important role in that. So I ended up going to a holistic doctor who told me and showed me how low my melatonin levels were,
Mhm.
which is the natural ingredient that your body makes to kind of just shut itself down and decompress the brain and let the brain rest. So ever since 2015, man, I've been on a melatonin supplement, all natural, and it really helps me. I know it takes me an hour to wind down, so I pop that thing in, and I've been able to sleep, and it really for the next day helps me to focus and say I know I have these amount of hours to work. As I've gotten older, I've worked better during the day and not
Mhm.
just all night how I used to go in my 20s, just all night or whatever, and get 2 hours of sleep and come back and do the same thing again. Um, so yeah, I've really tried to be in tune with my body as far as sleep is concerned, because it plays such an important role um, on your brain, and it keeps me creative. You know what I'm saying? Like having good rest.
Hey, Adam, going back to what you were saying before about having a great team, I would imagine that factors into your ability to get some rest as well. And I remember for me, I had a moment just some years ago where I was sitting in the office of an agent named Brent Smith. You guys probably know him. Just for our viewers who don't, Kendrick, Drake, Childish Gambino, um, on and on and on. And Tyler, the Creator, represents a lot of great acts. And I was talking to him about my growing business, putting tours together as a tour director, and handling labels and management company rosters and what have you.
Uh
And he
huh.
basically said to me, you just need to figure out a way to clone yourself. And for me, I mean, obviously, cloning myself is not something I'd necessarily be confident or comfortable with or want to unleash on the world. Um, but it really made me think that in terms of building my team and putting tours together that I could comfortably put out there and know that I trust the guys around me and that everybody's doing what they got to do. And when I say guys, I mean definitely women included, men and women for sure. But tell us a little bit about your team building process, about how you have built your team, how other people that are coming up in the industry could potentially, think about the team that they want to surround themselves with, and as they want to build their own brand and their own business, could think about in terms of what you've done to put that team around you.
It's a lot of trial and error, man. It's a lot of trial and error. It's also a lot of going with your gut. You know what I'm saying? It's and it's a lot of character building as well. First and foremost, I would like to say that everybody on my team is just good character people. And one of the main reasons for that is because when I am not available to be there, I need to know that they are operating in a space and I need them to know that they're representing me. You know what I'm saying? So anything you say, do, if I was there, let's continue to do it if I'm not there. You know what I mean? So I would rather work with a less talented person, as Kyle said it before, and know that for me that their character is strong, than to work with, maybe a more talented person and have to worry about their business acumen, or if they're gonna cut somebody out, or, caught doing drugs or something like that. Like that's not what I stand for. That's not what my company stands for either. So character of a person matters to me. I would almost say a little more than the musicianship at that point with character, with team building. The other thing that I would say for me is the workflow. Christine and Kyle could attest, like, we are thrown into some positions to work fast. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I don't know how much tour name dropping we're able to do on here, but when we get called for things like Tidal, or get called for things, via Rock Nation or something like that, it happens so fast that they're like, it's Monday, we got a festival to do on Sunday. You know what I mean? So it's like the workflow has to just happen, and there's only, to me, a certain number of guys that can even get that together. You know what I mean? And that is a big part of team building as well, is like, how fast do you work? How well and efficient do you work? Being thrown into a high pressure situation. And so if we can pull that off as a team, a high pressure situation, then preparing 3 months for a tour, it becomes easy for us. You know what I mean? Like, when we have time and space and energy to do that. I think character, then efficiency, and then also just knowing your craft. I don't always have the time to, for instance, going to a background vocalist rehearsal, but I will make someone that I have worked with a lot be in charge of that background rehearsal. And because I trust them and because they know how I work, I don't really worry too much about, the process of them learning lyrics and stuff like that. Now, if I come in there and I want to change a harmony or something like that, and I know they'll be able to adapt fast, but I'm not able to be everywhere, like you said, Matt, at all times, especially on set. If I have to go do a lighting check with the lights, or I have to go do a time code check with the programmer, I might need my keyboard player to kind of run band rehearsal, and I have to trust that when I come back, they have been efficient. You know what I mean? So it's the third thing I would say is about trust in your craft. Me trusting that you know your craft well.
So at the end of the day, it's about trust and making sure that they keep the BBE brand solid. That's important. Your brand is who you are. Your brand is what keeps you working in this day and age.
Yeah, I think it's the integrity as well, because when we're all working together, we want to see each other win. It's I definitely would say, like, when we're up there as a band, I may get the credit, but everybody shines. You know what I mean? So it's like we want to make sure there's no weak no weak links in any of the team.
I just want to point out also that you're not even bringing up musicianship. It's like musicianship is taken for granted. It's these other attributes that you're looking for when
Yeah,
you're talking about building your team, when you're talking about hiring a band. I think that's an important thing that young people should be mindful of, that just because you can play, like, cool, great, I'm glad you can play. That's for granted. Like, you have to be able to play in order to put yourself in line to get a great job.
for
But it's
sure.
all these other character attributes that really get your attention.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I think social media has done people a disservice a little bit because everybody can play. You know what I mean? So it's the other intangibles. Like we're on stage 90 minutes. Like what are you doing for the other 22 hours? That's gonna let me allow you to get on my tour bus and roll out with me for 6 months. You know what I'm saying?
Totally, completely understood. Because at the end of the day, that's a tour family. We in our own proximity.
Yeah.
We don't get to go home, and the bus is our home. So my pet peeve is cats jumping on the bus and not locking it. Like when you
Yeah.
go home, do you not lock your front door? Get on the
Yeah.
bus and lock the bad boy. Because as soon as we get robbed, when we in one of these cities, because the bus is on the street, everybody can be looking crazy. And
Yep.
I've had many of battles with cats on the bus about just locking the bus. That's a simple exercise. You get on the bus, you close behind you, and you lock it, and you keep it pushing. Or you get off the
Yeah.
bus,
I think I learned that. I think I learned how important that was from you as well, too, Kyle, because we are a family out there, man. So, of course, as men, sometimes we got it on our own, but it wasn't until, an earlier tour of mine where we rode all together. It was a smaller tour, but we had some young ladies on the bus, and they were like my sister. So it's like, I don't want to leave them unprotected. You know what I mean?
mhm,
So, and then, fast forward some years, you make a little bit of money, you want to buy a pair of sneaks on the road. I'm like, I don't want my shoes taken that I spent
right, exactly.
this money on. Or fast forward, and Christine slides you a bottle. You like, nah, don't be coming get my bottle, doc.
Absolutely. Can't be stealing the Douce.
Don't be stealing the brown.
So, how would you feel? Since we come on the conclusion of our coronation per se, in theory, because everybody
I
wants
hope so.
right. What would you say the state of music is right now? When it comes back, is it going to be so hard hitting? Are there going to be a bunch of records coming out talking about some Corona mess, or besides next December when you have a bunch of kids running around here from the coronation? What do you think the state of music is right now?
Man, I have to be honest and say that I don't think that the changes are for the better for us. I think it's just
Mm,
going to be a way different. Um, it's going to be a way different scene. It's going to be a way different vibe, man. We've, as a culture, as a community of entertainment, um, we've learned what we can live with and what we can live without. And in a bad way, I feel like record labels and artists have learned what they need and what they don't need. Not necessarily what they want, but I'm saying what you need. You know what I mean? And I've been doing a lot of these pre-record tracks. I've been doing some shows where we are virtually taping, and I'm mixing a lot of my band stuff where it's like we might have normally gone and done a concert, but everybody's home, so then it takes, or it doesn't need as many people, and then budgets are going down because it's still considered promotional, but it's like it's a case by case scenario. There's no touring happening. I've had, off the top of my head, 3 tours be canceled or postponed with no with no deciding return day. Um, so I think it's going to be very interesting moving forward to see how these artists, uh, make live music, how much they make it a necessity. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, there's some top tier people out there that won't do anything without a band. But as Matt put it, the working musician, the middle class, we survive off of the gig, the day-to-day gigs. So um how many of those people, how many of the middle grade R&B artists now, their labels won't give them band support and stuff like that. How different is Coachella gonna look on stage, with just some dancers, or maybe nobody, or maybe one band member or something like that, because 2020 the artist has gotten used to that.
Right.
um
Well, Adam, I just want to jump in real quick, and I apologize. I thought you were wrapping that
that's all good.
statement, but I want to play devil's advocate for a second here, and I want to say that 2 years from now, people are going to be desperate for full scale, next level productions. That everybody's going to realize that it might cost a little more, but the industry will find new and better ways to monetize and come out of this. Because I want to put a positive spin on what's going on here, and I hear everything you're saying, and I know that it's true. But as concert touring professionals, of course, we want to find the silver lining in all this. We want to figure out how we can come out of this, looking better, feeling better, doing better. So imagine a world where we've found a virus, or a vaccine. Excuse me. We've certainly found the virus. We're 2 years down the road from right now. People are vaccinated. We are mindful that changes need to be made. But other than the changes like potentially wearing masks, let's say we're over distancing, we found a way that people can come together again. Maybe for Kyle's sake, everybody has learned how to wash their hands. That's been kind of a central issue here for us for the first couple of weeks. And you know, looking at this as a positive again, what can we do to make this industry a better place from a musician's perspective, from a music director's perspective? What's something that we can do that makes the touring world a better place for everybody?
hmm I don't have the answer to that. That's a very good question. I don't know. You mean as a safety precaution, or as a musical like?
As I mean, as an advancement in touring, and I don't mean to put you on the spot. It's a bit of a loaded question. We can
Yeah.
bring you back on the show another time if you want to talk about it then. But I'm just thinking in terms of advancing the industry. See, I've taken the opinion that what's happening now is kind of a reset button that the concert touring industry could use to our advantage, because we are a young industry. People have been touring for 50, 60 years ever, total, going back to the beginning of the concert, industry, the music world. I'm not talking jazz musicians from the 20s, 30s, and we've advanced out of that. I'm talking about like next level. How do we make this coronation, as Kyle says, an opportunity to step up our game and come out better, stronger, touring, to use your word, more efficiently,
Yeah.
and looking at ways to do things better.
Man, I it's a loaded question. It really is, because as I transition probably in the next 5 to 10 years to a more production management type of role, my answer in that when that headspace would be, how can we tour for less money? And how many bodies do we really need for people to enjoy themselves? And I know that sounds crazy coming from me, but I'm just answering the truth to say, when I want to go see, somebody like a Kanye, it's like, I was the guy in the pit band of Going to Dark tour. Like, before we went and did it, like, this is never gonna work. Like, people want to see the band. You know what I'm saying? And it was probably, that was 06, 07, probably one of the most successful tours I've ever done. Hence, he goes out, and I seen Christine out on Watch the Throne, and they had 3 people in their band, and saw Kanye after that with nobody in his band, and playback. So one of the things I think is going to get weirder for the musician is that, labels and artists are going to see what they really need to survive to just do a good show for people. Now, coming from the musician standpoint, total 180, I want to say we have to make ourselves more valuable. We have to learn a new skill. We have to learn a new sound. We have to learn other jobs to then go out on the road and say, okay, not only do I play electric bass, I play keys as well. Not only am I front of house, but I can do monitors as well. Not only am I the programmer on Pro Tools, but I can do Ableton as well. Not only do I sing background, I can dance as well. You know what I'm saying? So I think those are the things that are going to have us survive as the working class and be more efficient, is that our skill set ends up being so valuable that the artists need us.
So we have to diversify as the working class, as front of
Yeah,
house.
we have to diversify. I think me and Kyle specifically, and Chris, I'm sure as well, and Matt. It's like there's been some gigs even financially where it's like, yo, I need you to put a stage plot together, but I also need you to do front of house. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
For me, there's been situations where it's like, yo, I want to take a 2-piece band or 3-piece band, but I want it to sound like full orchestra. So what artist wise, they ask me, what do I need to do? How can I get you in the studio? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we have to diversify and learn new skills and continue to build in our craft new things, man, for real.
So post coronation again, do you think salaries are going to go down because everybody's being at home?
Absolutely.
So the salaries we were once making, you think that's a thing of the past? You think it ever come back to those rates, or it's a wrap?
Yes, I think salaries are going to come down. The main reason why I think salaries are going to come down is not going to be anything to do with are you worth what you're worth. I think that this coronation, nobody has made any money. You know what I'm saying? So if we're going to be honest, I have a small business that I run, but like I can't imagine having like a Def Jam or a William Morris or anything like that, as to where you use bigger tours as capital to fund other things.
Right.
And so with nobody making any money right now, how can they do that? I just have to be honest and say, how can the Justins or the Rihannas work for the lesser known RCA or Def Jam artists? Nobody's making any money. So and I'm not trying to count the artist funds because they are well off, like for sure. But at the end of the day, some of the salaries that we request and that they agree to are because they know they're going to make it back. You know what I mean? And, it's no guarantee of that at this present time.
Now, let me throw a slightly different perspective out there, which aligns with what you're saying for the most part, Adam. But again, maybe this is just a positive spin, but I think that the people that are at the top will get paid. And I think that what you're saying about diversification, about versatility, I think that's what everyone should aspire to. I think that the more skills you have, the more valuable you'll be, the more you can get paid. And maybe it's the people that aren't using this time to cultivate their skills that really should think about doing that, because that is how they're going to get their job and how they are going to have any chance of earning their rate, because people that they were sitting next to on the last tour are hustling like they're broke right now, and some
Yup.
of them are.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading an article from Gabrielle Union, who is, as we know, is married to Dwayne Wade, and she was just saying, like, don't get it twisted that they're stars, but a lot of the actors in SAG, for instance, are one check away from not having anything, because that's how they build. That's how they even, I think that's how we all, financially plan. Whether that be our mortgage might be, a tenth of what theirs is, but if you're going to make this amount, that's how you can afford it. So I kind of equated that as well with the music community and entertainment field. It's like, yes, these artists are very well off. Like I said, I'm not trying to make excuses for them, but if they personally feel that they're one check away, they're going to be trying to skimp somewhere, and where would that be? Is probably with us.
There it is. So, Adam, you've been great. Before we wrap, we have a few standard questions that we like to ask. And you've already addressed a couple of these, so you can feel free to decline or pass over. But do you have a favorite tour or moment that you could tell us about?
Whew. Yeah, I have a lot, man. My first show ever, big show, was Jay-Z Fade to Black 2003 at Madison Square Garden. That kind of set my life on a whole different trajectory. I met a young Kanye West. I met a young Beyonce. I was supposed to be Jay-Z's farewell. I'm using air quotes, Christine. His farewell concert. um, and so that for sure lives in my brain. I would also have to say, I don't know, man. I don't know how much you want me to go into detail, but it's been a lot of different things. As I look back at it, doing Drake's promo tour in 2011, 2010 in theaters was really dope for me. I was coming off of Kanye, Glow in the Dark, and we doing these arenas, and coming off of Janet Jackson doing arenas, and then I went to Drake, who I had known in my heart of hearts was the next big thing, but he was still just starting out, and man, we was on the road overseas and in the States with this new kid named J. Cole opening for us, doing theaters, and that was a very, very dope experience for me as well, because I got to see how he works and how he interacts intimately with the fans, and how his music speaks to these people. Um, fast forward, I grew up a Bad Boy fan. In my life, I never ever thought I would play and dance on stage with Puff Daddy. So the Bad Boy reunion tour, for sure, is a big deal in my life. Justin Timberlake and Jay-Z doing a co-headline tour, probably the two biggest, influential artists in their genres at the time, hip hop and then pop. That was huge for me. And then we did it in stadiums. And then I followed that up with doing Rihanna and Eminem, very same concept, similar concept, and, in stadiums. And that was great. So I've had a lot of amazing moments, even going back to, Jill Scott's 2010, 2009, her first arena tour. We had done every little club and little venue, then moved to House of Blues, then moved to theaters. And I remember being a part of her first arena tour, and that was huge for soul music and huge for my city. You know what I mean? Having Philadelphia be on the map on a scale like that hadn't happened in a long time. So, each of those moments and many more have impacted me. Being on stage with Dr. Dre at Coachella, me not being a West Coast guy, but just being a music fan, and me seeing how that impacted the world to have him perform his music live. And I was able to, be his musical director and play bass on that, and met a young Kendrick. And, that's when we first brought Kendrick out and stuff like that. It's been so many moments, man. So many moments. I'm sorry I'm rambling, but they all have a special place in my heart.
No, I love it, and I'm sure our listeners love it too. So I suppose with that, I mean, is there any additional wisdom, and you've imparted so much, but any additional wisdom you'd like to leave with our listeners for today?
I think that I would just like to tell the young guys, man, like, if you believe in it, stay with it. Don't let anybody, steer you away from your passion, from what you believe in. I would consider myself an old school guy as far as like I always used to just want to have a plan for whether it be the release of music, the rehearsal schedule, the tour schedule, whatever that may be. But times are changing, and life is short, and so I really feel like if you have a product that you believe in, and you have to go hard on it, man. Invest in yourself. Invest in your gear, invest in relationships, nag the people who you think can change your life. That's probably something that I would tell my 18-year-old self, my 38-year-old self would tell my 18-year-old self, is like, nag the people who you feel like can change your life. Because them telling you no does nothing. It leaves you in the same place, but one yes can change your life.
It's so funny you say that. I totally agree. I've always said there's a fine line between persistence and stalking. And that gray area, that's where you got to live your life if you want to truly succeed.
Got to, especially when you're prepared. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying nag somebody and your product or your skill set is not good. I'm saying if you believe you should be there and you've prepared and you're put on this earth to do what God has called you to do, it's okay with it's okay to be persistent.
There it is. So finally, any shout outs, parting shots, anything you'd like to say?
Man, I just want to thank you, Matt, Christine, Kyle, Chris. You guys have been power players in the industry for a while, so I'm honored to be on here. I want to thank my wife, Alicia Blackstone, for running our company, Basic Black Entertainment, BBE, with me for this long now. We're going on 10 years in the company. We have established ourselves as one of the foremost music staffing companies in our game. So that's a blessing. And she allows me to just stay creative and team build while she handles the other quote unquote dirty work. So I appreciate that. And man, I think that, praying for everybody's safety and well-being, and hopefully that we come out of this, like I said, with another skill set and with something else to add to why we are valuable to these artists, to these tours, to these companies.
Love that. And Adam, real quick, on social media, where can people find you?
Yeah, no problem. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Adam Blackstone. And then you can follow my company, Basic Black Entertainment, at Basic Black ENT. That has a lot of various things that we are doing across the world, and just excited.
Well, Adam Blackstone, thank you again for being with us today. You've been inspiring. You have had an amazing career, and you're only in your 30s. Can't wait to see what you do next. Hope to be a part of it in some small way. We all do. Sure. We would love to have you back here anytime. So on behalf of my co-hosts, my name is Matthew Walt. This is Hustle Like You Broke. Until the next time, we will keep hustling. Find us online at HLUB Podcast on Instagram. Hit us up on email if you want to send us any questions. info@hustlelikeyouBroke.com. Questions for us, questions for Adam that we can ask him after the fact. We look forward to hearing from you. We appreciate everybody. Thank you, and good night.